So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and I thought I'd do something a bit different. You see some really good videos from players who probably know the game far better than me, looking at map tactics and how to play various maps. And I thought, yeah, they're really great, and they are. There's some fantastic ones you get, but very few of them kind of run you through at ground level what you should be seeing and what you're doing. So I thought, well, let's hop on and see how this goes. So let me know whether you like the format, and let me know any feedback on this. So I'm in a training room. This is Himmelsdorf, map we all know and love so well. I've pumped up the mini-map as much as I possibly can to give you good indication of where I am on the map. So I'm coming up the hill. This is, reason why people go on about the hill and why it's so important is exactly this. So if you can take this hill, you have a dominating view across the map from here, and it's hard for tanks to push very far from around the map unless you control this hill. Now when you're coming up the hill, there's usually a big old snarl up here, and there's some nice positions though. I mean, there's a lovely this rocky outcrop here gives you some protection from the enemy if you are if you're able to take advantage of it. So you can see there, you can, if you've got a reasonable gun depression and some good slopey frontal armor and a good turret, you can bounce shells quite well from there. However, it is rather susceptible to artillery. And artillery don't have an awful lot of places to go on this map, but often you will find if the enemy artillery will go to A0, and if they're there, they've got a fair chance of hitting you in this position. So that can be not so great. Another option for you here, again, if you've got a tank with a good turret and good gun depression, a T29 or so forth, if you can creep up and use that gun depression and that gun elevation to make yourself as small a target as possible frontally, you can fire across from the middle here. Again, it's a little bit risky to artillery, but you can do that. Another thing often people do is coming up to the corner here and do the pokey game around the corner here. Again, very risky. If you've got a tank with pretty good side scraping, you can actually side scrape on this rock here. That wasn't a very good side scraped on, but you know what I mean. So like that. This thing obviously doesn't. So that's all good. Now the reason why this hill is so important is its view range from here. As you can see up here on the top, I can see everything up to basically the 2 line, and if anything else is spotted, I can see all the way into the 1 line. So that means tanks that are trying to get down here are within my range. If they're trying to come through the bit here, they're well within my range, and I can even spot down into tanks that are using this sort of back area here to target them. If the enemy have even pushed round, let me go back round here, if the enemy have pushed successfully, then this is actually quite a good fallback position. So again, from here you've got some shots down along this row here. There. You've also, if you've got a gun depression, or you're very brave and don't want to fall off, you can fire down onto tanks running along here. And if you notice, you can even see up into our friendly cap here. There. So that's all good stuff. And again, if you're attacking from the north, you come down to this sort of position, you completely unlock everything that's defending along here. The only thing you can't hit is tanks that are right down at the end of the banana road there. So that's why this hill is so important. So if we've successfully taken it, we have really good view range across pretty much everything else that's down below you. Now if you're coming up from the other side, let's go and do that. So if you're coming up this other way, again, if you have a tank with good gun depression, and a good turret, then it's feasible for you to sort of poke over the top here and fire at enemy tanks. So the position I was in over there, you can try and fire at them over there. There you go. However, there's slightly less protection this side because you don't have that rock outcrop. However, another option for a very fast moving medium or even light tank is to come all the way down here and get into this sort of position. Now, it's only worth doing if you've got plenty of support coming up from A, B, C, 0. But if you're here, you could stop any enemy push up this way, and effectively you've taken the hill for your team. So if you're brave or stupid and get into that sort of position, you can do a really good job for the team. You've also got this rock again from the other side. So again, if you have good armor, you want to side scrape or what have you, you can do it from here. Again, same problem with artillery here. You will often find enemy artillery go to K0 or J9 and will fire up onto anything that's in this area here. The other thing that happens from this side, from the north side, is you have very good view lines again from here, so you can see all the way down the back of this row of buildings here. Makes defense here very difficult, almost untenable. You can't fire down into the banana road, but you can kill everything supporting it. From up around here, again, you have shots down into the enemy houses down there, and also across to the railway over there, all the way around. Now often you'll often find that there's a sort of a snarling match goes on early on with tanks coming up from the north, sort of stopping at the D0 line. You'll get tanks coming up from the south stopping at the G0 line, and they'll have a sort of snipey festival between them there. Then maybe one or two of them will break to try and get round to the rocks at F0, and then other tanks will come round here. It tends to be the light stuff and the medium stuff, but they'll start having a sort of poking competition around here with each other. Because the beauty of that is, obviously, if you're coming from the north and you manage to kill your opponents here, you can pop up behind anything that's trying to hold that rock there and you can kill them. Similarly, coming from the other direction, coming from the southern spawn, if you can push around here, you could unhinge anything trying to defend around here. So that's critical. Now there are a couple of other little spots here which are worth knowing. Oh, and one thing to say, obviously, when you're poking round the corner here, you are very susceptible to fire from down below. So you will often find in games that tanks go and position themselves along here and firing up onto where I am now, and then conversely tanks that are down this sort of area, whoops, let's move forward a bit, this sort of area or slightly further down, that will fire up into this area over here. So you have to be really careful. Now you can drop down and if you're a low silhouette tank, you can get down in this sort of position and you can avoid most of that fire. But the trouble is then you're probably going to be hit by tanks that are coming around the corner. So this is a very risky position, but it also has huge dividends. So the other positions there are up here that are kind of useful. Again, for tanks that have good gun depression and good turret armor, which there are quite a lot, this kind of position here is good. Again, you've got the ability to use that turret and that gun depression to take on any tanks that are trying to come around the edge there. You are also safe from any shots that are coming up from below, so that's a huge advantage. And we'll go down the other way and you can see the other side of things. So there's a sort of similar kind of position here. Not quite so good, but it's still doable, still usable down here, where you can, again, with good gun depression and good turret armor, you can fire across at anything coming around there. Now that's a little bit more risky this side because this wall is much lower. and so you can get hit. But you know, it is what it is. That's the way the map works out. And again, you can see that the reason why the hill is so critical, absolutely critical. I've got binos. I'm now seeing out to myself. I'm seeing out to the 3 line, and if I had a friend who was sitting down on the 1-2 line, they would spot things for me, and I could be able to hit things out there in the 1-2 line as well. Look at that. So there you go. That's the hill. The hill on Himmelsdorf is, in my opinion, the single most important feature in the map. You need to, your team needs to secure it. It's slightly less important on an encounter game, but even so, still a very, very worthwhile thing. What you don't want, if you've got enemy tanks sitting up here and enemy TDs able to sit up here, it cuts down your movement potential to a huge degree. You cannot use the central area, and you can virtually not use anything from D down to G without being shot in the back from above. So it means that anything you do has to go right from the north or right from the south, depending on which spawn you are. So that's not so good. So hill, critical, absolutely critical. So next we'll look at another area that's really important on Himmelsdorf, and that's the Banana Road. That's the road that runs down the 8 line. And the reason why this is important, well, this is traditionally part of sort of the heavy area. This is where the heavies gather to brawl. You also get sort of the assault gun TDs come here, because you can see that you can get into this sort of position. Again, you hull down using this rock to secure your lower plate or even your upper plate from being hit, and you've got good lines of fire all the way down onto the corner there and down round to there. Really, really good areas here. And the heavies love this area because they are relatively arty safe, although there are a couple of, if you're too far back here at this end, artillery that are positioned up at sort of A2 area, A3 area, can, if they've got enough trajectory, can lob shells onto you, so you do have to be careful. Conversely, artillery that are positioned either at sort of at K4 or K2 can launch shells down to the other end of the Banana Road. So important road this. You can't really come down it until you know that your flanks are secure. If the enemy are pushing down the 1-2-3 line, then it's more tricky, but there's some nice rocks halfway down, allow you to get in more hold down positions and to be more protected as you push down. Conversely, from the other side, before we run out of time, let's have a look at these. So you've got the same sort of rock feature here. That's a good hold down position for tanks to use. You can also, if you're very brave, side scrape or poke from this building here. And indeed, there's another position further back here, which is kind of useful if you've got good view range, and maybe this is more the sort of TD assault gun position, which you can fire down there. Now, if you are on the Banana Road, you do have to pay real attention to what is going on, particularly on the hill, because it's very, very easy that if the hill falls, you can be outflanked, and next thing you know, you've got heavy tanks in front of you and you've got heavy tanks behind you. So really, really important. So next up, we'll take a look at the sort of more defensive positions along the G line and also the D line. So these are kind of a mixed bag, and you've got to be really careful. So there's some observation positions like this one here, where you can see down into the enemy row of houses there. There's also some other positions along here where you can see through, but they are very risky, and if you're not careful, you will get shot at by a multitude of tanks. So you know, be careful. There's also big gaps as you run down through these things here. Another position here where you can climb up and be, you know, cause some mayhem. And you do see some TDs do this quite effectively. Some medium tanks. I've seen heavies do it, but they are not very successful at it. So yeah, you can use those windows, but the main thing about these windows and what have you is that you do need to be conscious that they're there. And when you're driving down here, remember that the enemy tanks, if they are on the opposite side, can probably see right through and fire at you, so be careful of that. Now, generally, you don't see an awful lot of vehicles in the middle here. You see tanks that are sitting at the end of the banana road, working their way down, and then you see other tanks further down this end of things. Now, why is that? Well, because from here, you can see up onto the hill here. So when we were up on the hill, you could see there were good shots down from there. Well, conversely, apart from that shot went low, there's some good shots up from me from here. Similarly, along here, I can hit tanks that are working their way down that way. I can also, if they're not careful, hit tanks that poke out too far up there. So these are quite good positions. However, you will also be spotted there, and shells coming down the other direction can make a mess of your day. Conversely, you can come down to this sort of area, and from here you also have shots up there, probably better ones, so you know that's good. However, now you've got a risk from anything that's coming round from your left side or down this road here. These positions are also kind of useful for certainly early games, spotting tanks that are coming down that or crossing over to the railway lines. A tank with good spotting ability will see tanks as they fly along that B line there, and you might get lucky to better put some shells in. However, you have to be careful of that window there, because that is a really solid defensive position. a TD with good, or even a medium, or even a heavy for that matter, but mainly TDs seem to go there. If they've got decent turret armour, can put some serious smackdown on you from there. So be careful of that. Slightly further back on this side, there's a couple of nice positions for, particularly for TDs again, but also for mediums. This one here is a little bit advanced, and you could be hit from the hill here. I can still see up onto the hill there, and that's why the hill is so important. But that's a possible position. There's also another one back here. Not quite so good because your view range isn't so great, because there's a sort of bend in the road there. So this block of rocks here isn't fantastic. However, it is very good if things are coming down that way. So that's that side. Let's go over the other side, the corresponding other side of the map, down the D line. Bear with. So yeah, you can see all this line that I'm running down here is very open to fire from the hill. So again, from this position, you've got some shots down this road. Anything trying to push wide there. You also have some shots up onto the hill here. From further back here, again you have shots up onto the enemy tanks that are up there, or any tanks that have pushed this successfully around this sort of direction. So powerful position again. However, again, same as it was on the other side, if your friends have lost the hill and they're firing down on you from up there, this can be a very exposed position. There's not an awful lot of places to go from here. You can pull down here, but it's quite difficult to avoid shells, particularly if you're a bigger tank. This T-67 is obviously quite a small tank. Oh, there we go. You can also from here far up, not such a good position. Again, same thing apply. You got very little to run to, so it's quite a dangerous position to be in here. And as we said before, on the banana road, there's a corner here that's usable if you are clever. Now, the other thing to look at on this map, particularly if you're coming from this northern spawn, where you get some air. Get some more air, see what we can do. There we go. So say you start in the northern spawn, I've mentioned it from the other side, but there's a really nice defensive position here. I'm not quite tall enough in this tank, but you can see from here you can fire through that aperture, and if you've got a tank with good turret armor, that's a really powerful position to be in. You do have to watch for tanks coming around this way, but conversely there's a nice position here to keep an eye on anything that's going to attempt to push down the railway tracks. Next up, let's have a look at the railway tracks themselves. Now, if you come from the north, you have again a slight advantage. I've been spotted. Oh my god! Oops. Try not to drive into the wall. And here you have the sort of, I guess this is the maintenance depot for the railway. Some nice positions here. Getting on those rocks there, not going straight up on them of course. That's always a good position. Gives you a good line of sight down along here. If anything heading down this way. You also have shots down towards that end of things where sometimes if you're lucky you might spot some artillery. However, these are fairly obvious positions, so here again similarly good spotting. If you've got a good spotting tank, firing down those railway lines can be quite productive for you. However, probably more useful position is round here. Turn around, is to get up into these sort of positions here. There's a nice bush here which can be useful, or if you're really brave or stupid or both, there's a nice bush here which has even better view range down into the middle and will undoubtedly spot anything that tries to push around this side. The other thing that people do, particularly light tanks and fast moving TDs like the 67, is to come down here. This is a nice position. Now all this is knocked downable, so from here you've got some shots along the railway line if you're brave, but the other thing to do, oops, is to keep these buildings as protection. This is all solid. Now you do have to be careful, and I have done this myself. There are a couple of holes through here, and I can't remember which one it was exactly, but I have shot through here before now. So anyway, if you can get up to this end, you basically unlock the fences down here. Now there's a big open space from here which makes it rather problematic, but if you've cleared out or you've spotted for your friends, you can then maybe rush to this building here which is not breakable, and then use the railway cars as much as you can to get down the flank. Similarly, if coming the other way, if you're in a fast lightweight tank, you can get up around the back here, and lo and behold you've got some good spots on anything that's trying to hold that position there. Tanks that are over here. And the other thing to say is that artillery love coming down the 1 and 2 line, and so if you've got scouts that are pushed down either side, their positioning is really tough because there's no real cover at the back here, and same at the other side, so the artillery tend to get spotted and taken out, and this map isn't huge, so you can die quite easily. So let's go down the other end. Oops, destroy all the train while we're here. So let's fly down here. Now when you're playing Encounter, the map is, or the camp is around that building behind us there, so you do need to adapt your style accordingly, but the same sort of rules apply. Those view lines down are very good. So from this side, there's less cover here, but you do have hard cover. These buildings are quite useful. So if the enemy are pushing down this line, you've got some shots down there. If they're in that building over there, you've got some shots over there. If they're using that railway, you've got shots there. So railway car, you've got shots there. You will often see tank TDs with good camo coming down here and providing fire support down to their friendly team. You'll also see artillery positioning themselves around this sort of area, because from here they have shots up onto the castle area up there. They can fire up that way with a good loop. They can also hit the D0 area. I think if they've got enough elevation, they can even land at the end of the banana road as well. So that's kind of useful position for them to be in. But there is no cover, so that's a real problem for them. On fallback positions, so if the enemy are pushing hard, there's lots of places to fall back on both sides of this map, and it's quite a tough map to crack unless you completely overwhelm the enemy team down one side or another. But there's some nice little hidey holes down here. You can get in, and one there, I've seen artillery go in there and absolutely blast tanks that try and come around and own them. From this side, artillery positioned here have shots basically into sort of F0 on that side of the castle. They also have some shots into E9, and they also have shots down into sort of D7-8 area at the end of the banana road. But it is very, very open here, and you can be spotted from tanks up there if the castle falls. So that's not great. On the other side, let's whiz over there. One thing to look at while we're here. Early doors, early game when it starts, you will often find that if you rush down this central road here, you will get spotted by the enemy team, because they'll be in the middle there, and some of them will have long enough view range that they can spot you almost immediately. So we're going to go down the other enemy. Whoa, let's try not to turn the car over. There's a bit of a noob at the end there. Cool, view range on a B27 is pretty horrible, isn't it? Look how long it took before he spotted me. So here we go. So in this position, sometimes artillery will come and sit here. Again, they have some sort of shell ability up over the to fire at the sort of G0 area, which is kind of useful, certainly early on when the enemy are dug in at the top there. You'll also more commonly find is a good fallback position. If the hill has fallen and they're coming down that way, you can fire up anything coming up on the hill, which is useful. And also artillery will tend to position themselves, more often than not, you'll see them come round this way and come up into the back area here. And again, they have as good a... this is not a very artillery friendly map, so it's tough for them. But you can see if they're down here or they're in the conversing area on the other side, it's really, really tough for them to get any kind of shots, because they'll get spotted so quickly. If anything pushes down through the railway lines, they'll be spotted and killed almost immediately. So one of the problems that light tanks have on this map is a city map, and it's quite small, and there's not an awful lot of places for them to go to be effective as light tanks. They can be glorified TDs or mediums and use their guns quite effectively. But if you want to be a proper scout and do some passive scouting, coming from the south, if you're quick enough, you can get into a position here. You will proxy spot everything that's at the base of the banana road from the north team, and you'll also be able to, anything trying to push round, you've got some good shots on here. So that's a really nice position. And conversely, this side, it's a bit harder to get to this side, but if you can get down into this corner, again, you're going to proxy spot pretty much everything that's sitting in the at the end of the banana road, and that's kind of good. So really, for scouts and light tanks, that's about the most adventurous you can do. More often than not, the thing to do in a scout on this map is get up onto the hill early doors, be the eyes and ears of your team, and make sure you spot what's coming up. And once you see that the enemy are too heavily committed, or very heavily committed, pull back and leave it to your mediums and your heavies that are coming up the hill to deal with the threat. Pull back, use the opportunity to either redeploy down to the railway lines, or bide your time and see whether there's an opportunity to nip round the flanks and what have you. The other thing, as we saw, going down the one line from either north or south is also extremely good thing to do in the light tank, because you will unhinge and spot all sorts of enemy tanks that are down trying to defend at each end, and probably spot the old scumbag artillery. So good place to be. So anyway, so there you go. That's a quick look at Himmelsdorf. Winter's Himmelsdorf exactly the same, so you know, no difference there. But I thought you might appreciate just having a look at ground level. Let me know what you think. I'm happy to do more of these things, and you know, see what sort of feedback I get. But it's an interesting situation on that map, and it's not always easily played. The critical thing is always the city, the castle, the hill, because if you control that, you control a huge swathe. You control everything here and here, which means it's not uncrackable, and you do see teams lose because they've even though they've taken the hill, but you need to make sure you've got a good number of tanks heading up the hill, and if you don't, you're in for a real hard fight. TDs can fire up and be fired, well, any kind of tanks can fire up and be fired down on, so that is a danger area. So there you go. That's my quick look at Himmelsdorf from the ground, because I think people do some great jobs in terms of showing off the maps, but actually I thought it was useful to have a look at it at ground level as you see it and as you play it. So hopefully that was helpful to you. If it was, please give it a like, and if you liked this format, let me know down below, because if you do, I'm quite happy to do some more maps. I don't pretend to be a super tactician, but I've played this game 30,000 games. I kind of know where most of the spots are to go and how to play things on these maps, even if I'm not always capable of doing it myself. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. That would be great. Just click on the subscribe button. Nice and easy. Doesn't cost you a thing. And thanks for watching. Enjoy your games. Have fun. Remember, it is just a game. And try not to take it too seriously. And I'll see you again soon. Gamer Dom.